Hello everyone. Very quickly, I wanna name this episode the In the Mind of the Falling Leaf. That's the name of this episode. And what it is that I'm going to give you a very comfortable, I guess in a sense, talk on the nature of our mind in different states of consciousness. I'm going to talk about the nature of mind and the nature of reality, in a sense, the way I have experienced it, right? And you see that when I look at myself in an existential mirror, I see parts of me relevant to man. But I also see my irrelevance to man as well. And so I am seeing the ability in seeing relativity, but also at the same time being observant of that which is observing relativity to not be relevant. What that means is that throughout life, as you walk, you begin expanding different ways of looking at yourself. In other words, let's say you're a soccer player, you're a football player, and at the beginning you're very good, but eventually you go into harder challenges and you see that you change. And so we're not just calculating the change in our environment, we're also calculating the change in our mind, the change in our sensitivity to that realm of life, you know? You guys need to understand that some people never had a chance to experience a state of being outside of a very focused on idea. What that means is that your peripheral vision has been irrelevant to you, but to have a good life, your whole vision is relevant, even though you cannot immediately understand the relevance. What that means is that when you were younger, you might have looked at things and had no idea how you were going to get through them, but now here you are. So we have an ability to get through our own senses of reality. Now what that means is that you need to have a sensitivity to yourself first. Guys, this is all, I'm just building right now the setting before we can, I can talk about the mind of the falling leaf, you know, being in the mind of the falling leaf, right? So you need to be aware of a sense of sensitivity you have. In other words, not, you know, if you feel like you're the most gangster, you know, type of person, then you probably won't have sensitivity to look at the mind of a falling leaf. You don't care about these. So what I'm talking about in the mind of a falling leaf is to use that metaphor to understand the human condition. And I'm going to explain that very well, but right now you need to make yourself in a sense comfortable, get a cup of tea or something, just settle down, you know, and listen to what I'm going to say. Because what I'm going to say is going to be showing very deep metaphors. In other words, it's going to be a very layered talk. But at the same time, I'm not creating the layers. So we will see how it continues through. As you breathe, you're aware of your mind and your presence and your space. Now, this view to you might feel like an idea because you have rationally and logically understood that that's what makes sense. Now, it is time to realize that you have, in a sense, created some nonsense by saying that everything makes sense in this diagram. In other words, part of you has to always remain known. In other words, you have a past sense of certainty, you have a present sense of certainty, and you have a future sense of certainty. Okay? In other words, if I ask you if you did something, you will look back in your past and you have that sense of doing that thing, and then you communicate it. So we see that we don't need to be very simple in our methodology. We just need to be simple enough to acknowledge all presences. So you see, if we are using a technology that is making part of human beings' experience mean nonsense, it is not a helpful technology. What I mean by technology is that eventually it begins from a simple truth, a simple understanding, and then this new understanding is a new look at an older condition. What that means is that my words are echoes at first. But the real voice is how the echoes are heard to be, I guess, in a sense, very true in your mind. Our reality is one that alters. What that means is that today you will think this is real. Tomorrow you're going to think something else is real, more real. Today you think you're going to be, let's say, a businessman. Tomorrow you're going to be an artist. Today you feel you're going to be an artist. Tomorrow you're going to be a businessman. Well, you don't know how your energy is going to express because there are unknown factors in your life. So the human being is trying to understand what it is trying to find certainty in an unknown world. So he has to begin with what he knows and to see why he knows it. How do you know you're standing here? And you see, you go based on objective experience. So first, we must be in the process. What that means is that when you want to measure something without being in the observer effect problem, in my experience, this is my ideas, I could be very off, but in my experience, to not get caught in the observer effect means that the caterpillar has to turn into a butterfly to see that it's a butterfly. What that means is that it's an awareness to the direct moment of experience where even measurement is being had. You see, guys, you need to pay attention, not like they say in class. You see, if they put kids, and this might be a good idea to look at, which don't like the concept of pay attention, being told what to do, they can be avoided, they can be eluded into not looking at things. What that means is that if you have a grudge with me, if you think I'm your enemy, you won't do exactly what I command you, so I can direct you away, right? That is why, guys, we want a human being that is so aware of the human being, he never needs to physically fight. In other words, once you have your imagination, use it to bring harmony. Use your language, use your communication to harmonize your environment. And what that means is that when you begin being very authentic with yourself, you will reach that state, right? So all my talk so far is simply pointing to how we are a branch, we are a leaf on a branch. We're a leaf on a branch. And so we're connected to the intelligence of the tree. But the tree that we see physically. And what that means is that energy is able to be so empty that we are always filling it up. And what that means is that the nature of reality is different because there's an unknown element. Because there's an unknown element. Because there's that dark matter. We are being influenced by things we cannot see in a world so wide. Just think about it. How much does man want to measure? Think about these technologies, guys. Think about measurement. And we see the earth is progressing, but does man want to measure the whole galaxy, all of existence? It can, but it will create so many senses of nonsense for itself. In other words, you see your mind, it's okay to try to see if the door is locked or not, but to break the door or to even avoid the door are not good solutions. We want to, in a sense, transcend. And guys, what transcendence is, what enlightenment and nirvana is in a sense seeing that it's not an idea. And when it's not an idea, your understanding is vast. Do you understand this? Your knowing can be of a greater certainty, but only if you can see yourself to be that sense of knowing. In other words, you know how ready you are for a test. You know how quickly you act in conditions. This immediate information is for you. Now understand, as a separate entity, a greater understanding and the greater technology always lies in the unification of that separation. So our sense of transcendence is a sense of experience amplifying in quality. Think about it. What was the difference between the consciousness of the ape, the consciousness of, the things before, even in our imagination? The thing is that at each stage of transcendence, because one goes through a dramatic transformation, the butterfly cannot see itself to have ever been a caterpillar. You cannot see your consciousness being something that's space and time. You cannot see your consciousness being space and time. but you can see yourself being conscious of many things. You see, it's like the first person who picked up, let's say, a spoon, named it fork. And everyone got confused. They're like, that's not a fork. We know what a fork is. And you see, guys, you're engaged in life. You're a part of life. The way you're a part of life is, in a sense, the way how a drop is part of the ocean. This has been said in wisdom. These are powerful metaphors. You need to see big metaphors for yourself. You need to have a very observant gaze. And you know what? The difference in ability is how much you choose to authentically learn. And when I say learn, it doesn't mean learn from this. It means learn from all conditions. Be an explorer, and then you can confront. Because that being who's constantly learning from every moment, it doesn't matter if he goes through the worst condition or the best condition. He's excelling at a faster speed. If you're always advancing at a speed faster than your obstacles, when your obstacles hit you, you're always moving forward. What that means is you need to realize what is very important is actually you becoming sensitive to every moment of your life, because you need to be aware of it. If every moment of your life your mind is on some imaginary route in your mind of finding something, you're not being aware of what's here. That means you're not utilizing the immediate information here. That means if you're standing in the park and you walk, you're not retaining all observance, you know? And so man finds himself at first comforted, but then very harshly broken by subtle truths that didn't mean anything. What that means is that there's no point of conversion from one side to the other when it becomes an infinite cycle. Meaning fades when infinity comes. And so you need to understand that enlightenment can be done in many ways. For the Western mind that has creativity, creativity is healthy. In other words, bringing creative answers to your problems. So if you're in a place where you're tough and it's not the healthiest, it's not a very green place. Let's say you're in New York, or you're in a tough place. Let's say you're hustling. If you're in a tough place, have the ability, have one version of yourself that is always a problem solver, learning how to live life better constantly. It doesn't matter, you know? It doesn't matter what advice you don't have or you should have or you needed to have. You just constantly need to go and understand everything you have so far has been experienced. That's it. You don't need to name it. Just be like, I know what I'm doing. Now be comfortable and go build new settings. Because it's an amazing thing we can forget. Because if we didn't forget, we wouldn't come up with new ideas. We wouldn't come in new ways of thinking. So the human machine is one that excels in a sense of novelty, in a sense of being constantly in a new sense of expression. A new sense of expression at first begins with physical senses, but once you calm those, then you experience other senses of existential expression. And that is powerful. And that is something which it can't be spoken. You have to go to someone. You know? You either have to go to someone or you have to go to yourself and have a sense of being within you guide you. In other words, you can see every person right now has two options. One, you could go do some external research and go try to understand what a mirror is and constantly see that the mirror is the truth. Law of reflection. Or you can, in a sense, stabilize your sense of reality with an emptiness. What that means is that not being so convinced by your own ideas. Don't be so convinced. It's in a sense like, you see how an animal runs away or gets a sense of fear or even a sense of attack, you know? A sense of discomfort. You see that when the mind of man is being depressed, that means survival is feeling hard. That means the machine is being used improperly. And what that means is that means you're breathing, your gentleness, you're not taking care of your health, you're not even taking care of your mental health. And what that means is like, guys, mental health has had a bad name, and that's why you need to have new thought health. Let's call it that, new thought health. You know, just constantly see the concept of new. What that means is all the problems you think you're going to have, you know that when you get there, your mind's going to have great answers to solve it. And you're always interactive. You see, guys, let's say I'm going to make this a crazy talk and tell you now, again, before we really get into the leaf, because I'm building still. the Titanic. We see what the Titanic had, and I just want you to visualize, let's say me, or someone calm, or not someone calm even, you know, not even, I mean, calm is just a certain, you know, a certain state when you're in a certain way of, you know, acknowledging your space. But I guess, guys, what I want to say is that, let me see. Don't visualize me. When I speak, see me as Mr. Within. Don't even concern me as a thing. See me as a person who is, in a sense, unknown. Okay? In other words, don't take things personal. Just hear it out and just see what I'm saying. Try to listen. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And just interact as well. It's you know, self-awareness. To continue, the Titanic is it was a very nice movie, you know? Now let's say that movie has now given you the idea to be in it. And what that means is just visualize me and you in the Titanic, right? And suddenly we're on deck or something, and we just hear it's collapsing. We hear that the world's over and the apocalypse has come early, you know? Oh my God, who knew it would be in a, you know, glacier? That's what everyone in Titanic. So you see, me and you it begins, and everyone's running, and there's havoc, but I tell you, stop running. It's fine. I mean, move quickly, move efficiently, but stop running, just breathe, calm, and walk, right? And let's say you trust me, even though you think I'm insane because everyone's screaming and running around, right? And as I run, you see that I'm telling you in a life scenario where there is a lot of, let's say your worlds are ending, you know, it's important to take your last steps carefully. So in other words, the state of being you're in is very important. So I would say be calm, but walk quickly and be playful with how we are going to survive, for example. And me and you would, you know, perhaps run past, you know, the violin players at the end of the Titanic, and we, you know, I'd say I have some change, so I'd give it to the violin players and be like, yeah, you know, you deserve it or something, and then make the guy feel happy and then run, you know. and as I run, I see that you can always feel the silence in the most harshest activity. In other words, I have seen myself to be destroyed in the worst possible way. I have only seen my hell if only I have seen my heaven. And I have only seen my heaven if only I have seen my hell. So you see, it's a game at first of engaging the human mind with imagery. And not that it's bad, it's just that you are putting the values in, so it's based on authenticity, not based on act. So how authentic are you? What that means is that in your human expression, if you believe in God, do you really believe in God? And if you don't believe in God, do you really not believe in God? You know, it doesn't matter. It's just whatever you are, whatever state you're in, be authentic. Understand that life can affect you instantly. What that means is that you're on a certain range of spectrum, you know? So let's say if I'm, let's say in the middle, I can be more aware of the good and bad things constantly occurring in my life, you know? Guys, they're bigger questions. Please remember this. There's always bigger questions. There's the way energy communicates is changing. What that means is that spirituality before was just a nice story. Now the youth is engaging with their consciousness differently. What that means is that every person who's lived so far can share their experience. What that means is you want to be honest in this life. I can't believe people can lie. I mean, what is lying? What is it? What is it doing? You know? Because you want to, let's say if at the end of your life there was one chance right before you died, you could look at everything again, what would that story be? who would you be? And you see, you wouldn't know because perhaps you don't have a memory of the stuff you've done, you don't know what you've done, but maybe perhaps because you haven't looked. Maybe sometimes you feel you don't know yourself because you haven't looked. Our understanding helps us stand on greater planes of experience. You must be able to work with yourself in all conditions and even to let go of ideas. What that means is that if I'm standing here and someone comes up to me and says the worst things that one human being can say to another human being, and let's say they said it in front of everybody I knew, my reaction would suggest what type of human being I am. And I would realize if I was attached, I would have seen my death a million times in that person's voice, you know. But because I'm detached, you don't die. What that means is like not detached as in you're physically detached. It means that if someone comes and tells me something, I see that they don't know what they're talking about because they don't know me, so it doesn't bother me. Do you see? It's a sense of giving one emptiness to reflect. So let's say if I'm here and that person started shouting and saying all this stuff, I would not say a single word. I would just stand there and breathe very comfortably. I would teach that arrogance and ignorance that it needs to be aware of the other side of the spectrum. In other words, me, whoever I am, with whatever views I have, must be able as a being first, to confront any form of my humanity. And so I say it's not about sin being actions, it's about actions that affect how experience is occurring. So what that means is we want our society, our world globally should be focused on amplifying and making human experience efficient. That's the most important thing. Because, not human experience, make experience efficient, not human, not just human. Make any experience efficient. And what I mean by experience. Experience is the most valuable unit of life, unit of measurement, and it cannot be measured. I cannot measure how much you're experiencing in this moment because you have a choice in choosing your associations to your thoughts and solidity and whatnot. In other words, even though you have had a crime, let's say you've done a crime, you've sinned, you know, you've taken the apple. Let's say you've done that. Now, you must see that human psychology is nonsense to itself, to every individual. In other words, you as a person will see that the way life is communicating something to you is not accurate, and you will stand or you will not move, or you will just go with the certainty, you know? And so if we're just here playing with objects, it feels like toys to me, guys. It feels like if we're only just measuring based on rulers, that feels like toys. We must measure by realizing the infinite measurements found in the experience of consciousness. All our measurements must teach more about ourselves. You see, why do we say experience is important? What does that mean, let's say, when you go to someone and they say, sorry man, you don't have experience, you cannot continue? What does that mean? That means you have not seen some things. So when I realized that the school system is not enhancing your vision, but in a sense, it's just cutting it up to a certain specification, we're not creating polymaths, even though we are studying very intense math. A polymath is someone who can exert himself or his mind to any state of being. You are aware of any state of being, any path of humanity. So you see, guys, infinity is the beginning of revelation because it's the concept you don't understand. So you must seek and question. What does infinite being mean? What does eternal being mean? What does the physical human form understand when it says God? And you see, it's all about the human. It is nothing relevant to here. It's in a sense based on human activity. So a God that is judging human activity, why didn't he give a book for every other state of being, for example? Do you know? Why are we significant? And our significance is based on how integrative and, I guess, unified we see our world. I mean, unification is not a new concept. Be authentic and you will have unity consciousness experienced in your life. But the whole idea is that we let our imagination show us how to experience our higher senses of being, which are not, in a sense, ideas, but states of reality that are not local to Earth, but present. I don't know how to say it. It's like, just like how in my memory, my sense of past and present and future are all standing in the same room, it's an instantaneous knowing. What that means is you will, if you are going on a spiritual path, if you are going on a path where you want to learn, you want to go for self-discovery, my talk is healthy for you. But if you're someone who's just curious about these things because they think it's cool, no, it has to be existentially real for you. You need to realize that when you go on a spiritual path, you are in a sense allowing yourself to be broken, to re-look at life. So you must be willing to let go of everything. That means before I get to the pool, when I get to the pool, before I go into the pool, I must take off my jacket. That means the caterpillar has to enter the emptiness of its own darkness to be seen, to even be able to re-experience life as a greater being. What that means is that don't think of one heaven and don't think of one hell. Don't think of heaven and hell. I would suggest getting rid of those words. But if you're stuck on those, think about infinite heavens and infinite hells. And think about how all the infinite hells and all the infinite heavens are based on one another. And you see that the judgment, that one who is seeing heaven and hell, is just simply seeing a very dualistic relationship that is keeping them at a certain state of being. How you're aware of your ideas suggests how much freedom you have to express. In other words, when someone says you are this, why do you see these present in your experience? And so greater sensitivity is in a sense a path of self-discovery. Don't go based on an premature or immature curiosity, do you know? You're not here trying to do a magic trick. You're not here to gain infinite power. Do you know, it's not that kind of thing. It's a very gentle thing. It's when you want to cut the you want to, in a sense, get rid of all ideas that don't serve you. In other words, you want to become and be your truth. What that means is what you believe is the peak of your experience, you want to go have it while you're alive. And the peak of your experience begins with a certain level of attentiveness and awareness to how you're looking at things. In other words, once you begin questioning what's within me and what does that mean, you see that depth is a powerful tool for humanity. Depth is wisdom. Depth is how much we're absorbing from our knowledge. Knowledge is just, the actors. The play is wisdom. Being aware of the play. You see, in life we're different actors. So knowledge is more of a subjective recognition to ourselves. So in other words, the way I am probably perceiving some subjects are not similar to how others are, even though we can take out of our abstraction agreements to agree to a certain solidity. In other words, me and you can see that we're both looking at this ground, regardless if I know you or not, or if I've ever spoken to you, by simply observing and seeing that we're here. So knowing we are here gives us an ability to comfortably explore our consciousness. And knowing we're here means we have to come to the present moment. And you see, guys, I'm not fond of the word present, mainly because I'm not fond of the word past and future, because they take man into a level of analysis that it's not even ape. It's not even like the intelligence of the ape. It's mechanical. What that means is when we began thinking mechanically, we weren't aware of our imagination. Imagination hadn't developed. You see, what 7 billion people does is give you 7 billion ideas of the human being. And more. Trust me, 7 billion, infinite amount of, like Googleplexes or something. Googleplexes or something. Anyways, my talks are at times self-discovery still for me. What that means is that when I speak to you guys, it doesn't mean I'm not discovering what's going on. It doesn't mean I figured it out. It just means that I'm trying to experience. Okay, actually this is very hard to explain and I'm probably not going to say it. I'm just going to say that consciousness is always its own teacher. So regardless of how long you're with a teacher, you choose the path. Let's say you found your perfect teacher. He instantaneously dies the next day. What would you do? Who is your teacher then? You will realize that it's you, because you have to decide where you go. So you're always giving yourself direction. So you want to see what that direction really means to you by seeing who you really are. And that self-awareness gives you a power to look in the minds of, let's say, a greater presence of being. Now, finally, guys, after that long walk across the desert, let us now enjoy our most comfortable drinks by walking into the mind of a falling leaf. And what that means is that in reality, our different states of being can all be observed by a sense of presence that is above its own conception. What that means is that multidimensionality is the storyteller being aware of the character, being aware of itself. And when that occurs, it's an inspiration. So man's place, man's realities are inspiration for a greater mind. Similar to how I have been inspired in poems by a leaf. So in other words, life cycles are always inspiring other life cycles and different forms of consciousness. And so right now we want to see how unique it is. We're all being very playful here. That's all we can be. Because in a world where you have to survive in hardship, playfulness is the only pleasant route. And for now, until we take care of a lot of our problems and whatnot. We must find ourselves as luminous emissaries to our surroundings. And what that means is that regardless of the story you have, you must be a very good and compassionate person. In other words, have a great mind to do great things for a great world. Thank you.